And welcome back to Subculture. Now, if you're a theatre lover and you're in Melbourne for the next few weeks, and then if you're in Brisbane, you'll be able to check out a brand new production of Patrick Hamilton's Gaslight. Now, of course, this is a pretty old theatre play. This is a play that first debuted back in 1941 under the name Angel Street. It has been adapted into several films over the years and has been a hit play basically anywhere it has been performed over the years. Now, the director of this version that's in Melbourne at the moment, Joanna Wright, she has always dreamed about bringing Patrick Hamilton's Gaslight to the theatre, and that is exactly what she has done with this production. Now, for those that don't know the story, it is basically about a quite well-off woman, Bella, played here by Geraldine Hakewill, and her husband, Jack, played by Toby Schmitz. Now, Jack is kind of concerned about Bella because Bella is having delusions about things that are happening in the house that they live in. She hears noises at night that their maid Elizabeth, played by Kate Fitzpatrick, doesn't hear. Things go missing and she blames either Jack or the staff, which also includes newcomer Nancy, played by Courtney Cavallaro. And it is a story of a little bit of he said, she said. Is Bella sick and imagining all these things, or are Jack, Elizabeth, or Nancy kind of messing with her and trying to make her believe things? The house that they live in does have a little bit of a history as well. Elizabeth, as I said before, played by Kate Fitzpatrick, she's been a maid in the house since she was a little girl, and the last owner was murdered while Elizabeth was in the house and supposedly looking after all the affairs of the house. The lady was murdered for her jewels. So is it a haunting? Is that what is starting to get to Bella? That is the story of Gaslight. What exactly is happening that sparks all these things that are happening for Bella? Lee, what did you think of Gaslight?
Well, this is a cast of just 4.
Yep.
So very strong performances to pull off such a big story, really. I thought the performances were really, really strong and solid, and each person made their character so intriguing that you wanted to figure out what was happening within the story. The set design was really good. It's basically, this whole story is basically set in one lounge room, in a 1900s style lounge room.
Yep.
And so there's no real big changes at all of the set design. And so while that design looks really good and makes you feel like you are in that house, in that lounge room the whole time, the performances are very strong to then bring in a whole story. It's a little bit like a Murder, She Wrote or a Agatha Christie, because there is a storyline about a past murder as well, and how did that happen and why did that happen and how does that interconnect or link in with the current couple, Jack and Bella, living in the house now in the 1900s. I think for me, the title of the production actually gave away a little bit for me, and I figured out very early on what was happening.
Yeah, and I think that's made me a little bit more angry now that I know originally it was called Angel Street as well.
Because it wouldn't have given away so much. However, there was something within the story that a little bit of a mystery that or an item that was in the house, perhaps, maybe not in the house, that I was kind of intrigued to know, where did that item go? What happened to that item? So that was more of the mystery for me to figure that out, because I'd kind of figured out myself with the characters what might be happening personally for the characters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, this left me a little bit mixed, because I loved the way it was written, and I loved the set design. I thought the set design worked magnificently well, especially considering that the gas lights in the house become a very important part of the story.
Yes.
So I thought that was really well done. I thought the performances were great. Of course, there's some characters that are actors that are playing characters that are supposed to be disliked, which is always difficult for an actor to do. But I thought all the performances were really well done. Kate Fitzpatrick makes Elizabeth that little bit standoffish, which of course makes her a suspect, like with the way that she's in. Geraldine Hakewell does really well playing a character that you don't know. Is she suffering from a mental illness? Like, is she haunted? Is she being played? What's happening? I think she does that really well.
She really showed that hysteria that's kind of shown in women in that time period as well, where she becomes quite hysterical and she's crying out loud, and for me personally, I find it hard to connect with a female character that so easily kind of squeals and cries and is very anxious like that, just because my character is so different. But she pulled that off really well.
And then you have Courtney Cavallaro playing Nancy, who I guess in these terms, these days and times, you would say that she was streetwise.
Yes.
Like, she's a little bit rough and ready. She doesn't really fit that kind of upstairs, downstairs kind of nature of a maid. But there was a couple of things that really annoyed me about this production. First of all, I was like you. I picked who was the guilty party, and what I was hoping was that it was that obvious because there was going to be a twist. But there was no twist, so I was kind of disappointed. The other thing that I really didn't like, and I don't know how this got through, there's a fight sequence between two characters at one point, three characters I should say, and it just didn't look real. Like, the way it was choreographed didn't look real, and then to the point where one of the characters hits another one with a skillet, and the blow on stage and the sound effect didn't add up.
Didn't match.
Didn't match, yeah. So I thought that was like that's the kind of thing that when you're doing Year 12 drama gets you a bad grade on your cat. So yeah, I thought that was a little bit weird for such a great production. There were other times I thought were really well done. There's a time when a character has a gun to their head and there's a thunderclap, and that was done so well that the audience gasped when we were watching it tonight. So there are moments where this play is really, really good, but there's a couple of moments for me that just was a little bit of a letdown. But look, it was made more special for me by the performances. I thought all four leads were absolutely sensational with what they did as their performances. So yeah, I thought that was really well done.
I thought the costumes were really good too.
Yes, especially that party dress that Bella wears.
Yeah, it's a kind of jade green, I guess you would call it, party dress. And of course, down to the floor, beautiful long dress. And the costume designer is Renee Mulder. And, the suits for Jack, very much of that time period, as were the maids' costumes, which I really liked. I mean, the head maid had this black, full black dress, which I thought was quite exquisite for a maid's dress, with the long black sleeves and everything. And then the other maid, had the white apron a lot with her black outfit as well, so slightly different outfit. But yeah, through the Through the performance, Bella had a few costume changes, and I thought that, they all looked very, very much to the time of the 1900s. There was a white dress, and then there was like a skirt and top with long sleeves, kind of a purpley, browny colour. But yeah, I thought the designing was quite exquisite.
Yeah, look, for me, this is a production that if you're a real Agatha Christie kind of Murder, She Wrote, Columbo, Pink Panther kind of fan, you will get something out of this. Just be prepared for it to be a little bit predictable, and I think that's because of the nature of the time. Like, when Hamilton wrote this, there's enough in it that when it premiered in the 1940s, it would have been a little bit of shock factor, like with some of the topics and stuff that's explored. But, of course, these days, like we just mentioned all of those TV shows, we grew up watching them, so you kind of are a bit more used to it. Whereas in the 1940s, when Hamilton first wrote this, someone might only go to the theatre once every 3 months or once a year, and there was no TV, so it was much more of a surprise for these kinds of things. So
I guess what hasn't changed is human nature. There's greed. There's the storyline of anxiety, depression, control, wanting control, how you treat one another as humans, what you want out of life. Are you able to share? Are you making sure your loved ones are getting what they need out of life, or are you all for yourself? There's all those human traits that, back in those days, we still have the same issues today. Nothing has really changed.
Exactly. So look, if you do want to go along and check it out, Gaslight is on in Melbourne for the next few weeks, and then it heads to Brisbane as well. So make sure you go and check out Patrick Hamilton's Gaslight, back on the stage again and looking pretty wonderful. So go along and check out Gaslight.